Okay. Good morning to you all, and respected HOD Dr. Shajida, my friend Dr. Uh, Rizwana Sultana, and other respected professors and research scholars and students of the department, and other members and well wishers and other friends of the research forum, Farook College. I am truly honored and delighted to be part of your research endeavors. And I'm really glad to know that this is the 50th anniversary of the research department at Farook College. And I wholeheartedly congratulate all the faculty members and the HOD in particular, and all the students and researchers who are making it possible, a proud and enlightened legacy from Malabar. I salute you all, and it's also a joy for joining you because my own teacher, Professor Professor V.C. Harris, he was teaching there, and he used to tell a lot about Farouk College days while I was an MA student with him, and also when I was doing my PhD with P.P. Ravindran, he was there to support me all the while. It's so sad and unfortunate that we lost him in that incident, in that accident, that tragedy. Anyway, I remember Professor Harris, and also I have been to some of the previous seminars, especially done by Ruswana and others. So anyway, it's a great occasion to be part of your research endeavors and academic pursuits. And I'm truly honored and delighted to be the inaugural speaker of this webinar series. And with the support and consent of all the teachers and students and researchers here, let me declare that this webinar series, this research forum for this year, it is open. So, as Dr. Sajida has mentioned, this is one of the most crucial issues of the present, the crisis of democracy in our country. We are facing unprecedented kind of calamities and dilemmas, both political, cultural, and social. All these issues are there. So we are already into that problem. We have been into this thing for last few decades, we may say, and it is into the peak, like the pandemic. It is peaking into a kind of severe crisis, and we need to face this catastrophe. And we can face this challenging moment or this decisive juncture of our history by addressing our own legacies of democracy, of the soil that comes from underneath the soil, that is buried deep in our land. So that is why when Dr. Rizwana contacted me, I mentioned this topic of democracy and representation, the struggles of Dalit Bahujan cultures, or the Dalit Bahujan cultural politics for democracy, for well-being of the people, for the welfare, for the greater common good and the welfare of the people. That is what democracy, in simple terms, means. Democracy is the rule for the people, by the people, and of the people. We know from the American model and the champions of democracy like Abraham Lincoln himself. And it is also, we are part of the legacy of modernity in the English studies in particular. English itself is under erasure and threat under the NEP today in India. And modernity at large is at stake, and modernity is under erasure and attack. In India, we know all forms of jingoistic ultra-nationalisms and all forms of revivalisms of the barbaric kind. It is coming back in India in the name of the dominant religion, unfortunately. Intolerance and violence, it is growing in India. We are into a kind of genocidal, kind of alarming situation in India. So, in order to address all these political and cultural and social problems of our country, we need to address the deeper issues of democracy, both political form of democracy, social form of democracy, and also the cultural expressions of democracy, especially the politics of culture. It is very significant in resisting and countering the hegemonic kind of formations. So cultural politics, as we know, as students of literary and cultural studies, it is nothing but the politics of culture. It is another word for cultural studies itself. And it is also something called a counterculture, creating a counterculture or an alternative space of divergent, different cultures. So diversity, difference, democracy, these are key words in culture, contemporary cultural politics. Or contemporary cultural politics and cultural studies in the academic field, it view what you call the politics of culture as a contestation of culture, as a diversification of culture, as a democratization of culture, providing space and representation and voice and mobility to the basic communities of people in any society, so that the society is healthy, and so that the society is balanced, and so that the society can develop its human potential. So into that what you call greater humanity, into that cultural development of diversity and democracy, we are trying to create a new space for our society and the country through the expressions, the cultural expressions in particular of the excluded, that can challenge the hegemonic culture. So, cultural politics in the contemporary sense is nothing but the contestation of the hegemonic culture and the what you call the challenging of the dominant culture, and inculcating liberal and democratic values into the public sphere and into the academic sphere and also in the epistemological sphere, so that the whole society is well balanced and well maintained, and we can talk about a future for the coming generation, so that the posterity in particular, especially the young generation, the youth of India, the young generations, the young people of India, they are benefited, they can have a better future. So this is the endeavor in which we are discussing Dalit literature and Dalit cultural expressions and Dalit Bahujan politics and Dalit Bahujan cultural politics at large in the country today. So, as we know, this Dalit Bahujan is a popular term now after the rise of the DSP and Kanshiram and Mayawati and others in North Indian politics, that has challenged the monopoly of Brahmanism and caste Hindu hegemony in politics and social spheres and in the religious and spiritual spheres in India. It's also a key word in social sciences today. In contemporary critical humanities, Dalit Bahujan has become a critical epistemological category, a key word of culture and resistance today. It's been popularized by Gopal Guru himself, Gopal Guru of JNU, who is one of the preeminent what you call political philosophers after Baba Sahib Ambedkar himself. And his works, we know, humiliations, claims and context. Humiliations, claims and context, in which Gopal Guru has elaborated about the caste humiliations and the hierarchical worldview and the realities created by caste. So he uses the term Dalit Bahujan to make it more inclusive and make it more broader. Other critiques of Dalit studies in particular, like Gail Omweth, for example, a Western woman who came to India, who became an Indian citizen, and who settled down here. She has also enlightened us a lot about Ambedkarite writings, the philosophy of Ambedkar. She has written the biography of Ambedkar, Ambedkar Towards an Enlightened India by Gail Ambedkar. She has also enlightened us about our own cultural democratic traditions like Buddhism in India. Buddhism in India challenging Brahmanism and caste. That is another keyword. Dalit visions, she has written. Dalit and the democratic revolution, she has written. Towards Begambura, and so many other works. Through all these works, Western women, scholars like sociologists and scholars in social sciences like Gail, Eleanor Zelliot, another great translator and critical writer in Dalit studies. Eleanor Zelliot, she is also a Western woman. So like women like Eleanor Zelliot, Gail Omweth, they also use the term Dalit Bahujan. We have other scholars like Kancha Ilaiah Shepherd, for example, in Why I Am Not a Hindu, Post-Hindu India, Buffalo Nationalism, Tilling the Land and Turning the Pot, so many other works. God as a Political Philosopher, about Buddha, his doctoral thesis modified as a book, God as a Political Philosopher by Kancha Ilaiah Shepherd. So all these scholars have created this category of Dalit Bahujan into a more broader kind of term, and a more inclusive and more democratic term that can represent the majority of people in India. Women who are considered as Shudra or outcast or the last one, because Manusmriti was the constitution, the Hindu law or the Brahmanical law called Manusmriti was here for almost 2000 years. We know Ambedkar himself has given the origin of Manusmriti, how the Buddhist Mauryan empire was defeated through through usurpation and cheat, how Pushyamitra Sunga, the Brahmanical chieftain, militiaman, how he assassinated his own Mauryan Buddhist emperor and he inaugurated the Brahmanical kind of regime in North India, and how Manusmriti was codified in order to legitimize this heinous crime of assassinating his own emperor by stabbing from behind. So how Manusmriti was codified or fabricated in order to legitimize this evil crime done by a Brahmanical leader. Ambedkar has elaborated about it. So according to Manusmriti, the Shudra, women and the Avarna and the followers of fraternal religions, they are not human beings. They don't have human existence. They are not even mentioned in the Purusha Sutta of the Rig Veda. So were the Chaturvarnya system or the Varnashrama Dharma system or the caste system, the theoretical form of the caste system is called the Varnashrama Dharma system, the Chaturvarnya system, division of society into fourfold Varnas, Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya and Shudra. And they have taken birth through the body organs of the Virat Purusha or the Brahma Purusha. The Hindu Brahmanical imagination imagined God as a Brahma, a universal spirit, and then they have imagined Brahma as a Brahma Purusha, not as a woman or a transsexual, but as a male, a typical male, a huge, colossal, macho figure, the Virat Purusha or the Brahma Purusha. And according to the Veda, the first Veda, Rig Veda, in a mandala or canto called the Purusha Sukta, it is written that the Brahma Purusha or Virat Purusha gave birth to Brahmins through the mouth. Brahmins came out through the mouth of the Purusha. Normally we are born to our mothers. Women are giving birth to humanity, we know. But only in this Rigvedic Purusha Sukta story, you have the Virat Purusha giving birth to other men. Only men are mentioned. So man giving birth to other men. Only these fourfold Varna men are being born from the body organs of the Purusha or Virat Purusha. This is the most hilarious, ironical story which was ridiculed by Mahatma Phule, for example, the pioneer of Indian social revolution, Mahatma Phule, Savitribai Phule, and others we know. So he ridiculed it. He asked whether the Virat Purusha is having a genitalia within the mouth. Otherwise, how can the Brahmins come out through the mouth of the Purusha? And Narayana Guru in Kerala, he also ridiculed this funny story by saying that, is it like a tree sprouting into shoots and leaves, tender leaves that the Virat Purusha is giving birth through his various body organs, like the thighs or the legs or the arms and all. So how is it possible? So all of them, they have ridiculed. Periyar also, Tandai Periyar, E.V. Ramaswamy Naikar also, he also ridiculed this funny story. So because of the regime of this Chaturvarnya imagination of India in the Brahmanical Rigvedic Purusha Sukta, and because of Manusmriti preventing the human rights and education of women and Shudra and the outcasts and other religions in particular, they are called the Mlecha. The Avarnas are called the Chandala or the Antyajas. And within the Chaturvarnya system, Shudras are considered as menial slaves, the lifelong servants of the other threefold varnas, the top twice born. Gopal Guru uses that term, the top twice born, the TTB, Brahman, Kshatriya, and Vaishya. And the Shudra is also denied equal rights and educational rights. In particular, Shudra Vakshara Samyuktam Dure Parivarjyate, like a rabid dog. A Shudra who learns the art of the alphabet, he must be chased away and killed instantly, like a rabid dog. That's the punishment. You have the different forms of punishment according to Varna and caste in the Manusmriti. For the same crime, Brahman is acquitted and Shudra is severely given the capital punishment. So this is the double speak. This is the what you call the double stance and double speak at the heart of the Manusmriti, which is nothing but the Hindu Brahmanical law. It is favoring the priestly classes or the priestly patriarchy, which is called Brahmanical patriarchy by Indian feminists, from Uma Chakravarti to Sharmila Rege, for example, from V. Gita to Rajeshwari Sundararajan, from Kalpana Kannaveeran to others, Anupama Rao, for example, a Dalit feminist critic, Anupama Rao, who has written that phenomenal work called Gender and Caste. And Sharmila Rege, for example, her last work, unfortunately, she passed away a couple of years ago. Her last work is also about this thing, about Brahmanical patriarchy. B.R. Ambedkar on Brahmanical patriarchy against the madness of Manu. That is the first title of Sharmila Rage, who was a professor of sociology at Savitribai Women's University, Pune. Kranti Jyoti Savitribai, who is a creation of Mahatma Phule himself. With the support and help of Mr. and Mrs. Sheikhs, they have initiated schools in 1840s. In the first half of the 19th century itself, Phule and Savitri, they have begun their schools with the support of their Muslim friends, Mr. and Mrs. Sheikhs. So that, and he was also in camaraderie with the Scottish missionaries. He went to the Scottish missionaries and he received English education. And he wrote about the caste slavery of India in English language. That became a public debate even in Britain and in the Parliament of Britain. So Gulamgiri, or slavery, was written by Mahatma Phule in mid-19th century, and it became a huge global kind of debate, and he dedicated it to the African Americans of the United States who fought against slavery, who survived slavery, the abolitionists like Abraham Lincoln. So he dedicated Mahatma Phule, an Indian reformer, an Indian Dalit Bahujan. He was from the Shudra kind of Varna. He was denied equal opportunity, and so the so-called Gurukula system of learning in the Vedic system, Vedic Vedantic system, the Gurukula system was denied to him by saying that he is a so-called Shudra, like what happened to Chattambi Swamigal in Kerala. He was also denied admission to that Gurukula system of the Othupalli, and he overheard it. And he tried to learn it because he was such a brilliant intellectual kind of a child. And he had his education in the Eluthupalli system. Later in Petal Rambulla Ashan's Pallikudam, he learned the art of writing and reading. So this was the condition of India till 20th century. when Ambedkar's constitution came, and Baba Sahib has rewritten the edicts of Manu, the Hindu law, the Brahminical law that denied equal opportunity, equal even human status and dignity, human rights and basic educational rights to Shudras, women of all varnas and castes, and other religions, and the Antyajas or the Chandala or the Avarna, the Dalit Bahujans in particular. So anyway, today, and also because of Gita, which is obsessive about Varna Sankara. Varna Sankara is the most abominable crime for the worldview of the Gita, which is the holy text of Hinduism. And Chaturvarnyam Maya Sushtam Gunakarma Vibhagaja, that is spoken by this Chaturvarnyam, this fourfold division of society. It is done by me, the Lord. The Lord himself proclaims that this Chaturvarnyam is a creation of mine. So this is how through divine kind of wording, divine kind of mouthing or ventriloquism, speaking from behind, Chaturvarnya is legitimized in the Gita. So these texts, Manusmriti, the Purusha Sukta of the Rig Veda, Gita, which is placed in the Mahabharata, through these texts and numerous other Smriti Shruti Puranas like Manusmriti, various other Smriti Shruti Puranas are there. These are the textuality, the imperial textuality of internal imperialism in India, that of Brahmanism, caste Hinduism thrives on these textualities. That is why even in the Puranas, you have the reiteration of the caste worldview, the Chaturvarnya worldview, the Chaturvarnya ethics, the Chaturvarnya kind of meta-referential structure that is dominating and ruling over all the what you call the so-called holy epics and Puranas, even the so-called aestheticized narratives like the Kavyas and the Mahakavyas. So that is why these Smriti Shruti Puranas form the bedrock of the Hindu internal imperialism. Hindu colonialism operates through the value sphere, the cultural kind of domain, the cultural kind of the web of cultural relations and symbols that are unleashed through these epics and Puranas. So that is why you find a war as a killing as a virtue, war as a great virtue, killing as a virtue. You find only this Krodha and Kama and Mada and Malsarya in all these things. And you find a kind of what you called representation that is a stereotyping, that is reductionist, that is highly unjust in these epics and Puranas. So you find forms of narrative attempts for demonization, narratives that animalizes people, that demonizes people. Human beings are rendered as demons. Human beings are otherized as demons and animals. And then, of course, it's a consent for killing. It's a license for genocide. And you end up in butchery and ethnic cleansing. So this is the unfortunate reality of the epics and Purana narratives in India, that is actually popularizing through very interesting stories and narratives. It popularizes the worldview of Brahmanism, otherization of your own self and annihilating yourself. That is what Brahmanism is all about. We have writers, not just for Ambedkar, even Marxist historians and scholars coming from the Brahmin community itself, like Didi Kosambi, for example. They have elaborately written volumes about Brahmanism, early Brahmanism, and how it has conquered India. All these things we have in all these writings of our eminent historians, from Didi Kosambi to Romila Thapar to Irfan Habib to Aras Sharma to Sumit Sarkar and others. We have plenty, volumes and volumes about the agenda of Hinduization and Brahmanization and saffronization of education. Even Sumit Sarkar and Thapar, they have written about at the wake of this century, 21st century, when the BJP government under the leadership of Vajpayee and Mahajan and others, and M.M. Joshi and others, when they tried to begin that saffronization of textbooks, especially Hinduization of history textbooks, they have written about all these things. So unfortunately, these things have come to this calamity because we were not listening to our historians, we were not listening to our critics, cultural critics in particular. So cultural history is very important, from where we can learn all these things. There are numerous examples in our own Indian cultural past about this the risation of our own people, and then indulging in a kind of ethnic cleansing that is there at the heart of the Hindu Rashtra. You know about Hindutva and Hindu Rashtra. We don't have much time to elaborate on all those things. So anyway, I was just mentioning about the what you call the severity of the situation, and the kind of extensive damage it has brought in, and what is going to happen in the higher education in particular after NEP. It is now being approved by the cabinet, and it is in the process of implementing. Only a kind of radical shift, an epistemological and cultural resistance can try to check these kind of anti-human, anti-democratic tendencies from within the academia and outside it. So unfortunately, even in Kerala, even the academia and all the even formal academies of the state were misused to do this kind of a Hindu kind of what you call propaganda through the epic narratives. Epics and Puranas were recited and recited and reiterated, and a kind of Hindu caste Hindu worldview was created even in Kerala through the elaborate repeated recitals of the Mahabharata and Ramayana and Gita in particular. And these things were all rejected by our philosophers of Kerala modernity. That is what the surprising thing. These were rejected only a few decades ago by Narayana Guru, by saying that what is the virtue of the killer? In Jivakarunya Panchakam, written in 1914, the Guru has clearly written, the killer has no virtue. However proficient he is, however well-versed he is, what kind of a war hero he is, he has no virtue at all. He is not even a human. How can the killer become the king and the Lord and the God? How can it be possible? Because the killer is meaner than a human being. He is not even a human being. He is meaner than a cruel wild animal. That is the statement of the Guru. കൊല്ലുന്നവനില്ല ശരണ്യത, മറ്റെല്ലാവിധ നന്മയുമാർന്നിടലും കൊല്ലായികിൽ അവൻ ഗുണമുള്ള പുമാൻ അല്ലായികിൽ മൃഗത്തിനു തുല്യനവൻ. He is equal to a meaner animal, wild animal. He is not even a human being. That is the defiant, clear statement of the Guru done in Jivakarunya Panchakam in 1914. It is not just a poem of vegetarianism, but it talks about anti-killing, not to kill, not to steal, not to what you call unethical activities. It is based on the Panchashila of the Buddha himself. The Guru was re-articulating the wisdom of the Buddha in modern times in Kerala in a more pluralistic and secular kind of fashion, with inputs from the Christian and the Islamic traditions in India. So anyway, unfortunately, our academies and our media and academia, they have indulged in this kind of a soft Hindu kind of a discourse in the name of literature, in the name of literary and aesthetic kind of so-called eternal values. They have indulged in a repeated reiteration of the Mahabharata and Ramayana and Gita, and they have created this calamity for Kerala, where educated women, elite educated women, they were protesting in 2018. They were protesting in the street against the Supreme Court verdict for entry of women, young women, that allowed the constitutional bench of the Supreme Court of India unanimously. They judged for the entry of young women into a public worshipping place in Shabarimala, which was in ancient past, it was a Buddhist kind of shrine. And they rejected that. The women, the educated women of Kerala, the caste Hindu elite women, the cream of women in Kerala, they said they are untouchables. We are Teendaris. We are having menstruation. Therefore, we are untouchables. We have a kind of pollution in the purity pollution riddles of Brahmanism. They subscribe to the purity pollution riddles of Brahmanism, and they proclaim that they are polluting, and they rejected that thing. And they even hurled caste abuse at the chief minister of Kerala, who tried to implement this Supreme Court verdict, which is his constitutional kind of promise. He has to implement it. He tried to do that. And even he was abused in public, on camera, on record, by caste Hindu women like Manichipillai in public, that was unleashed against Pinarayi Vijayan here. The caste slur was abused, was hurled at the chief minister, who is an aged man. So look at the power and primacy of caste in Kerala. So then how can you talk about UP or Gujarat or Bihar, for example? We have recently seen the Bihar election. So anyway, this is the alarming condition where caste and Varna has become the dominant regime. It has even surpassed the gender division, the gender hierarchy, and the class division. So caste is the primary reality in India, which is explained again and again, especially through this recent abuse of the chief minister by a caste Hindu women in public, using the caste slur that can be used against the people in general. So this is the unfortunate situation where we need to talk about the politics of the people, the politics of the marginalized, the politics of the excluded, the victims of Indian hegemony. Hegemony, as we know, is a term from Antonio Gramsci. And it has been used by students of South Asia, critics of South Asia, like the Indian Subaltern Studies Group, for example. Gayatri Spivak has used it to refer to the condition of women in India, especially the downtrodden women, the excluded women, the Dalit women in particular in India. So anyway, Gramsci, who fought fascism and who perished, unfortunately, in the prison house of Mussolini, he has written about the importance of culture and the societal forces. So hegemony is nothing economical. So that has made the cultural turn in Marxism also. Through the term hegemony, which is a consensual cultural role and rule in society, which is a consensual rule, a rule by consent. You have the co-option of the victims. You have victims being the agents and proponents of this hegemony. So the victims cannot question it because it is normalized and regularized as what you call religion or something supernatural or something spiritual, or socio-culturally it is conditioned. So Gramsci was the first Marxist thinker to talk about the cultural and social and other superstructural aspects of reality, that is creating inequality, that is bringing fascism to power. This has happened in India also, by Hinduizing, by culturally conditioning the people of India, the illiterate masses of India, the Bahujans of India. Fascism has come to power, especially through this otherization and demonization of the minorities of the nation. So these are related issues. How you represent reality, how you represent people at large, and how you stereotype, negatively represent the people and otherize the people as aliens and demons and animals worthy of the knife only then. So you have the license to kill them. So this is the process of narrative or cultural form of othering, and only through cultural forms of struggle, cultural forms of resistance, this kind of othering kind of discourses may be checked or may be resisted. So this is the importance of the cultural struggles of the basic communities of people, especially the people at the bottom who are the historic victims of the caste system, the caste and gender hierarchy in India, as Anupama Rao or Sharmila Rage and others talk about, or Uma Chakravarti talks about it as a multiple labyrinth, Brahmanic patriarchy, which is a term from Baba Sahib himself that they have developed. So Brahmanic patriarchy is a multiple kind of hierarchy. It is a graded inequality, as Ambedkar has elaborated. Caste Varna system is a graded form of inequality. It is not just a form of social exclusion and othering and direct kind of inequality, like the class system of Europe, for example, or the gender system simply of Europe, but this is a more embodied and engendered and casted form of inequality. So there are multiple what you called labyrinths, multiple kind of matrices within this structure, and it is at least it's a double kind of sword, says Uma Chakravarti, for example. She has written that essay conceptualizing Brahmanical patriarchy in EPW in the 1990s. So she has elaborated it as a double kind of sword. It's an inequality and hierarchy of gender, and also it's an inequality and hierarchy of caste as well. So multiple things are, and it is also inscribed on the body of women, in particular in Indian society, in the caste Hindu society, especially it is inscribed on the body and sexuality of women. So by making it a bondage, by making women's bodies and sexuality the biopower of the subaltern, in particular, if you use the Gramscian and Spivakian terms, so the biopower of the subaltern is being used and controlled in order to get them into a kind of endogamous kind of caste group. So caste is nothing but caste endogamy, argues Ambedkar. And the Indian feminists from Anupama Rao to Sharmila Rege, they also accept that reality. Even today it is working as caste endogamy, and even after breaking caste endogamy, caste is trying to resurface through various forms of claims, through the paternal lineage or the maternal lineage or whatever it is, through matrilineal or patrilineal, caste will again resurface. So that is the power of Brahmanism that has been established in the Indian soil over the ages through the creation of sexual colonies and sexual slaveries and so many what you call culturally conditioned forms of embodied engendered forms of hegemony. So it is deeply rooted, it is deeply structurally built, and it has been there as an institutionalized form of inequality and graded inequality through these what you call very inhuman and barbaric kind of codes like the Manusmriti and so on and so forth, those 64 anacharas and all those evil practices of Brahmanism. It has created a kind of normalized, regularized this kind of an evil in society. So it's very, very basic and very deep. It is such a profound attempt by the Indian Dalit Bahujan scholars and writers who from and thinkers from the Buddha at least, they have tried to challenge it. That is the insight that is given recently again by Gail Ombeth in Buddhism in India, challenging Brahmanism and caste. Gail Ombeth has written about the evolution of the anti-caste legacy. Only through critiquing caste and varna, you can challenge Brahmanism and the popular form of Hinduism or the Hindutva it has built as a shield, as a weapon against its enemies. In the olden days, it was the Buddhists who were the arch enemies. They were called the Mlecha. Mlecha means the what you call the other religious people, and they are undone from that long kind of rivalry with Buddhism, starting from the Sungan age around towards the end of the BC era. It for in the last 2000 years, it has eliminated. By 15th or 16th century, Buddhism is completely erased through the genocide of the Buddhist people, and they were pushed out of the peninsular India into Thailand or into Malaysia or into Myanmar or into Sri Lanka. And Hinduism has won the grounds, even in South India. South India has been resisting the Brahmanical law till the 7th or 8th century. But at least from 8th century, Brahmanism has made inroads into South India through the Bhakti cults, through the Vaishnava and Shaivite kind of facades. Brahmanism has again recaptured the power in South India, and they have eliminated the others, the Jains, the Ajivakas, the Buddhists. In particular, they were expelled, or they were banished, or they were butchered here in their own homeland. We have the statement of Ambedkar to Gandhi, Gandhiji, I don't have a homeland. I am a homeless person in my own homeland. Arjun Dangle has it, that as a title. Arjun Dangle, the Marathi poet and editor of various anthologies, he has that, homeless in my own land, homeless in my own land. And Poison Bread, that is the other anthology of Marathi Dalit writing by Arjun Dangle. So anyway, because of the severity of the caste system, because of the violence of caste, because of the genocidal heart of the Varnashrama Dharma project, it alienates all the others, and it tries to annihilate the otherized people. So that is the what you call the real anti-human, anti-democratic kind of core of the Hindutva that is operating in India today. And unfortunately, even in Kerala, that worldview of otherization and demonization is propelled and propagated and established in recent times by the what you call these epic and Purana recitals. Unfortunately, this has been done in Kerala to create the 2018 what you call the Shabarimala Shudra riots, the Shudra riots spearheaded by RSS and NSS in Shabarimala. And in the pressure tactics, even the chief minister was abused with caste slurs, as we have just seen. And in that pressure tactics, a kind of ordinance was passed in Devasam board, which is called the Devasam Ordinance 2018, through which 10% economic reservation was also established. So Shabarimala Shudra riots provided the pressure background for the passing of the ordinance in a few days, in 5 or 6 days. In under a week's time, this ordinance was passed. We know even today that Nirbhaya Act and Bill, it is not completely materialized after years of struggle. Even today, women's reservation in the parliament is not materialized. We know after decades of struggle. Even today, Mandal Commission is not fully implemented after almost a half century struggle. After that, it is not implemented. Do you know, in 5 or 6 days, the economic reservation was passed in the Kerala Legislative Assembly through the left, this anti-constitutional, anti-social justice, anti-reality, a historic and anti-historic kind of against any form of statistics, because the caste Hindus were already overrepresented in the Devasam board, as in any department in Kerala or India. The caste Hindus and the forward communities, they are already overrepresented. So we are a democracy. That is what is being dismantled, that is being deconstructed and tarnished through all these attempts of overrepresentation. So this is an overrepresentation and against the Constitution, because the Constitution envisions reservations or affirmative action as a panacea for social and educational backwardness. That is what the articles 13 or 309, whatever it is, the articles of the Constitution about reservation, it is for social and educational backwardness. There is no economic criterion at all in the purview of reservation, because all the other welfare measures of the state must be for economic upliftment of all its citizens, providing kind of what you call financial assistance or substantial assistance or food assistance or public distribution system, whatever it is, or the even forward commissions are there today. So they can have plenty of loans and other financial assistance. So reservation is not a what you call job distribution kind of a program. It is not an economic upliftment program, but it is there to ensure democracy in the country. We are a democracy. We are a social democracy in particular. We are a constitutional republic having social democracy. Our constitution guarantees justice primarily. It is for justice. The document of justice and law in the country is our constitution. And the constitution guarantees justice, social, political, and economical. So that is how. So primary form of justice is anywhere in the civilized modern world is social justice. So it is for social justice, imparting and ensuring social justice, that the reservation is there. It is not for economic upliftment, or it is not for the distribution of higher jobs to anybody having suffering from unemployment. It is not for that at all. It is for social inclusion, social representation. In another term, it is for representation of the people. If democracy is representation, if democracy is social representation, you have no democracy without representation of the real majority of people, the real downtrodden and excluded of your society. So the people, especially at the margins, the people who are excluded in particular, the people who are alienated from all forms of capital, whether social, economic, or cultural, or educational, whatever it is. So they must be given their rightful shares in history. So this is not just for the past wrongs. This is to ensure the present representation, the present equilibrium. Only when the various social sections of a nation are represented, only when the outcasts, the women, the outcasts, the minorities, and other contested sections of a society are well represented at the heart of the parliament, you become a democracy. So the representation is the basic process and the fundamental virtue and value in democracy, which is nothing but social justice at large. So this is for justice, not for economic redemption or economic upliftment or job distribution. That is the primary literacy. That is a primary democratic literacy that we need to inculcate in our students. The teachers need to tell their students. But unfortunately, those who speak for social justice, they are marked as castes or communalists, and they are banished from their land, from the from the purview of their working places. So this is the unfortunate situation that has happened in Kerala. And through the repeated recitals of this Ramayana, Mahabharata, and Gita things, these pundits and scholars have created a space of Hinduization, a caste Hindu kind of consensus, a common sense. Again, Gramsci's common sense. He critiqued common sense, and he talked about developing good sense, a critical sensibility that can cut across, that can critique the common sense, that can go beyond the common sense. So a common sense of soft Hindu aesthetic thing is created, and democracy was sabotaged, unfortunately, in India. That happened also through Kerala. That is the unfortunate case of the 2018 Shudra riots in Shabarimala. So my point is that we need to be vigilant against such sabotage of democracy that is done through the cultural means, that is done through cultural kind of discourses in the name of literature, in the name of the epic and Purana. This was done in Kerala. So we need to be extremely critical about traditionalist literature, especially the Hindu epics and Puranas in particular. Why don't they talk about the South Indian epics? Because the South Indian, why don't they talk about the Chinese literature? Why don't they talk about Asian literature or the Arab literature, Arabian literature? That is a greater legacy which we also part of through the Urdu and Arabic languages. We also have the Arabic Malayalam in Kerala that has been taught from the time of the Prophet himself to women, in minority women in Kerala. They were educating, the minorities were educating their women, but Shudras and women were denied even human status in the Hindu imagination. So even the word Hindu, it is given by the Persians. The Arabs and Persian traders, they talked about the land of the Indus Valley as Hindu, because they pronounce Sindhu as Hindu. That is why it is the name of the river, the ancient civilization. So unfortunately, we forget all these legacies, the legacy of the Indus Valley, the legacy of Buddhism that challenged Brahmanism, the legacy of the minority religions and alternative traditions like Jainism, like Sufism, for example, Sikhism. Yesterday was the birthday of Guru Nanak. We salute the great Sikh gurus, the Tirthankaras, the Sufi saints, the Islamic tradition of India, the Christian legacies of India. So that kind of altar, the Jewish legacy of Kerala, for example, we have Judapallis in various parts of Kerala, even standing today. So all these legacies, the multiple pluralistic, diverse, secular kind of legacies of South India and Kerala being suppressed, and they have established a kind of monolithic, kind of nationalistic, kind of a cultural form of nationalism is established. Cultural form of nationalism is another word for fascism. And through the image of Ram, unfortunately, Ram was also rejected in Kerala Renaissance. Now he's being pushed again as a centralized figure. It was Narayana Guru in Kerala in 1914. He denied the supremacy of Ram. He rejected Ram Raj by saying that it is the British who gave us sannyasam. Because if it was in the time of Ram, I would have met with the fate of Shambhuga. Shambhuga was killed, like Mahatma Phule, who was denied education by saying that he is a Shudra. Like Chatambi Swami, who was denied access to the Gurukula by saying that his mother is a so-called Shudra woman. Though his father was a Brahmin, his mother was supposed to be a Shudra woman. Then he was rejected the admission into that Gurukul. So Shambhuga was killed because he was a Shudra. So we forget all these legacies. It was stated by all the reformers, from Phule to Narayana Guru, to Ambedkar, to Periyar, and Pandit Ayodhi Dasar in particular in Tamilagam. We have that greater legacy. G. Aloysius himself has written about it, that Neo-Buddhist movement pioneered in India by Pandit Ayodhi Dasar, a Dalit reformer and a multilingual scholar from South India, Pandit Ayodhi Dasar. Poigai Appachan's legacy. I don't have time to elaborate on those great Dalit reformers and writers and orators like Ayodhi Dasar or Poigai Appachan in Kerala, one of the greatest voices of the Dalit struggle in Kerala. His struggles, decades of struggle in the beginning of the 20th century, that has created a kind of democratic space, along with the political assertions of Iyengali, the great educational struggles, the great freedom of movement struggles, and the great Kallumala struggles of reform, social cultural reforms initiated by Mahatma Iyengali in Kerala. And the message, the visionary message was given by the Guru: educate so that you are liberated, organize so that you are empowered. So that message of education and organization was given in modern times by the Guru, and Mahatma Iyengali exactly did it by his democratic political assertions. There are democratic movements, the direct political collective actions of the people, that in Mahatma Iyengali we may see that. The other one is the cultural form of representation, cultural form of politics, where you have culture and writing and literature and other forms of cultural expressions like music or visual arts, or other forms of expressions as a resistance. That is where you find Poigai Appachan. If Iyengali represents the direct political assertion, the direct political democratic struggles, Poigai Appachan represents the more nuanced, the more subtle. He was also into direct action. He organized many rallies, and he was also a Praja Sabha member, the member of the Legislative Assembly of Travancore. But he also sang certain things. His songs and spirituals. Excuse me, I'm having a cold, that is why. So his songs and spirituals, his elaborate speeches, all these are now being into English language, and I'm really glad to know that my own translation is taught in some of the universities. Through those greater songs and spirituals, like the African American spirituals, slave narratives and spirituals of the African American community, Harriet Jacobs, Aulada Equiano, to Toni Morrison and Bell Hooks and Alice Walker and others, In Search of Our Mother's Gardens, we know. So that kind of, from Phyllis Wheatley, Alice Walker has traced that legacy of the slave girl from Phyllis Wheatley to Sojourner Truth, Ain't I a Woman? So that kind of legacy, that kind of struggle you will find in the stories, in the songs and spirituals of Poigai Lapachan, whose songs are equal to any modern and contemporary kind of verse or poem. Regret fills within, I quote from Apachan, regret fills within, remembering the sufferings of the forefathers. Remembering the sufferings of the forefathers, regrets fills within. Let me add something in my own melody. So that is what ഓർക്കുമ്പോൾ ഖേദമുള്ളിൽ ആരംഭിക്കുന്നേ ചേർത്തിടുന്നേ സ്വന്ത രാഗത്തിൽ ചിലതെല്ലാം. That is what Poigai Lapachan has sung. His disciples has written it down. So anyway, from Poigai Lapachan to the contemporary Dalit poets, from the ancient wisdom of Pakanar, who lived in the 16th century perhaps, you have the struggle of the democratic vision of the past, the Baliraj, which was popularized by Mahatma Phule. Baliraj and Bahujan Samaj, all these things are from Phule. Bahujan is a term from Buddha himself. And later you have that kind of an imagination in Pakanar, who talked about Maveli and Maveli Naduvanidum Kalam. Manushar Ellarum Onnupole. That is a line which is paraded as anonymous, but it could be from, according to Dalit scholars, it could be from the lost songs, the destroyed songs of Pakanar, who lived in 16th century, was a contemporary of Eluthachan, and who wrote about the egalitarian times of Mahabali, the Buddhist emperor of the Paraya Mupar, or the ancient Buddhist chieftain of Kerala. In early 20th century, from this Pakanar song, Sahodaran Ayyappan has taken the wisdom and he has rearticulated it in the Onapattu, Maveli Naduvanidum Kalam. And he ends it by giving us all Keralites a kind of universal message. Vamanadarsam Vedinyidenam. Mabeli Vacha Veritinedam. You must throw out, you must abandon the ideology of Vamana. The ideology of Vamana is what is called Brahmanism in particular, which is the Chadruvarniya system, which is the caste Hindu system, which is the regime of Manusmriti. So you have to abandon Manusmriti and you have to take up the real egalitarian democratic legacy of Maveli, the just ruler of the people, the downtrodden people, who was pushed to the netherworld through cheat, again, like Pushyamintra Sangha, stabbing his Buddhist emperor Brihadratha from behind. This Maveli was cheated by the incarnation of Vishnu, that is Vamana. So that is why he says, Sahodaran says, Vamanadarsam Vedinyidenam. Abandon the ideology of Vamana and recover the lost legacy of Maveli or Mahabali as in the true spirit of Phule's Baliraj and Buddha's own Bahujan kind of concept. Bahujan Hitaya, Bahujan Sukhaya, that's the philosophy of the Buddha that was taken again in 19th century by Mahatma Phule. And Ambedkar considers Phule Kabir, the Sufi poet Kabir, and Buddha himself as his teacher. So that legacy, this Dalit Bahujan legacy, is something that begins from the Indus Valley, in the pre-Shramanic traditions of education and enlightenment in the Indus Valley, in the Buddha in particular in BC 6th century, then in the Sufi tradition, of course, in the Sufi and Islamic tradition of India, the Christian legacies of India, the Sikh legacy, the latest religion in India, the Sikh legacy, and also some of the other pluralistic legacies of South India, the Sangam literary tradition. We know why the scholars in Kerala, they are not talking about the Sangam literature, why they are obsessed only with the Hindu Sanskritic epics like Mahabharata and Ramayana. because the Gita is placed within the Mahabharata. So they won't leave it at all. Even though they belong to the Shudra denomination, they have become more Brahmanical than the Brahmins themselves, and they are fighting to bring down the Hindu Rashtra here. So this is the unfortunate case of Kerala that has created regressions into the primitive. We have gone back to almost 200 years in the past. We have gone beyond Ayangali and Apachan and Naranaguru. We have gone into the primitive. So that is why the Shabarimala Shudra riots have happened in Kerala. And under the cover of that, the Indian constitution was dismantled through the over-representative kind of Devasam board. There was some ordinance that was passed. And this happened even 3 months before Modi and Amit Shah undoing the constitution in the center by implementing the economic reservation there. So this is nothing but mere injustice. This is over-representation. This is not at all reasonable in any logic or in any kind of justice kind of a system. This is over-representation. This is a kind of aggressive kind of monopolization of the state resources in India. And this is a serious threat to Indian social justice system that is enshrined in the Constitution of India. So this is basically anti-constitutional. This is against any form of ethics and law in anywhere in the world today. This is against statistics. This is already over-representation. So how can you have more grabbing and poaching from there? So this and the media reports today, it reveals the immensity of this calamity. What has happened after economic reservation is implemented. The people who require it, or the people who are outside, underrepresented, their representation is further checked and diminished. And those who are overrepresented, they are grabbing more. This is happening from the +2 classes to the medical PG kind of seats. This is happening. So this is naked barbarism and violence, and against the constitution, against any form of just form of representation and democracy. Democracy is nothing but social representation. You need to ensure the representation of all. You need to ensure the just representation, at least proportionate kind of representation. That is what democracy is all about, a kind of government by the people, representative form of government. You cannot have a direct voting and veto, but through your representatives, you can speak in the parliament or in the legislative assembly. So that proportionate form of representation must be there. Otherwise, we cannot have a constitution. Otherwise, we cannot have a country. We cannot have a people. Everything, the idea of India will be lost if you push further this what you call anti-ethical, anti-constitutional, anti-reality, anti-history kind of a move. So this is high time that the people, the Dalit Bahujans of this country, which is a broader term, the Shudra, the women, the outcasts, the Dalits in particular, the Adivasis of India, the minorities of India, other democratic kind of sections and social sections, the contested sections, including the sexual minorities of the India. So if they can come together, as we have had in the recent Bihar election, a ray of hope was there. Only with a margin of few seats, they have lost Tejaswi and Rahul and others. They lost the power there. So there is a ray of hope in the horizon. And if the Dalit Bahujans of this country, the majority of the people, can come together against this what you call most inhuman power structure, the Varnashrama Dharma project, the caste Hindu, Brahmanical Hindutva system of India, you can have a true democracy in near future. That is our hope. And with that hope, let me conclude here, because it's already 10:20. So I'm very eager to, these are only kind of introductory remarks that I could make. I couldn't go well into the cultural politics of the Dalit Bahujan. I could just briefly mention some names from here and there, Poigai Lapachan, Sahodar Nayappan, and others. So anyway, with this what you call the introductory kind of considerations, formulations, let me conclude here. I'm thankful for the department and the college and other friends for this opportunity. And once again, I congratulate the whole department and the college for your academic and rigorous research activities and exercises. I wish you all the best in future. Thank you very much for inviting me, and thank you very much for the patient listening. Okay, thank you. Bye.